All right, let's start chapter 5 with section 5.1, which is about angles. And the best starting point is just to start from the definition of an angle and move forward from there. So, what is the definition of an angle? An angle is a measure of rotation between two sides about their intersection called a vertex. The initial side is the side that the angle measure starts. The terminal side is the side of the angle measure where it ends. So if we look at the illustration down below, you can see we've got an initial side right here, and we've got a terminal side right there. And where the initial side and the terminal side intersect is at this point right here. And that point is called the vertex V. So when the angle's vertex is on the origin, or the point 0, 0, and the initial side is in the positive x-axis, then the angle is in what's called standard position. Okay, so this illustration that I've got down here is an example of an angle that's in standard position. So you can see that the initial side of an angle is on the x-axis, and the terminal side intersects the initial side at the point 0, 0, which is the vertex of the angle. And so the angle is the measure of rotation from the initial side to the terminal side. Okay, angles can be positive or negative, depending if the angle is measured counterclockwise or clockwise from the initial side in standard position. So in the other illustration down here, we can see that we've got an angle in what's called standard position, where this is the initial side, and this angle is starting on the initial side and coming up and over and stopping right here on the terminal side. And this counterclockwise rotation, this is a positive angle. Now, if instead we start from the initial side, and instead of going counterclockwise, if we go clockwise around the vertex, then that is a negative angle measurement. So just like how we kind of measure, values of x being positive to the right and negative to the left, and positive values of y going up and negative values of y going down, because the motion of measuring angles is not linear, it's not side to side, up and down, it's rotating around a point. We call a counterclockwise rotation to be a positive rotation, and a clockwise rotation to be considered a negative angle. Okay. One full rotation is 360 degrees, or 2 pi radians. And we'll get into, degrees and radians, but you are probably more familiar with degrees. So what this means is that if we were to go one time around, so if we started on the initial side and we went all the way around and ended up where we started, that's one rotation, and that's equal to 360 degrees. or 2 pi radians. And it's going to be helpful to be able to refer to angles where their terminal site is located as to a certain quadrant. And so what do we mean by quadrants? Well, I mean, even though we are doing rotational angle measurements, right? We're measuring rotations, kind of going in a circle there. This is all being superimposed on top of an X and a Y axis. And when you've got the X and the Y axis here, it's actually splitting space into 4 quadrants. We've got quadrant 1, which is the quadrant that's up and to the right. We've got quadrant 2, which is the quadrant up and to the left. And then we've got quadrant 3, which is the quadrant down and to the left. And then we've got quadrant 4, which is this quadrant down and to the right. So just by having an X and Y axis that are intersecting each other, it separates space into 4 quadrants. If you've already been learning about the unit circle, you would already be familiar with this configuration of the 4 quadrants. Okay. All right. So, we've already established that there's 2 ways that you can measure an angle. It can be positive or negative. If you kind of go both ways, then 2 angles which share a terminal side are called coterminal angles. And coterminal angles may add up to 1 full rotation or become equal after a subtraction of multiple rotations. Okay, so you may not have been able to picture that on that verbal description. So let's kind of look at a picture and see what I'm talking about. So here we've got the initial side of the angle here on the x-axis. And if we measure the angle positively, so it's going in a counterclockwise direction, and we stop here at the terminal side, then the angle that's coterminal to this positive angle is the one going in the other direction, clockwise. So, here we have our angle, and down here we have our coterminal angle. I apologize for the text kind of shifting around there. Okay, so if your angle goes in one direction, the coterminal angle is going to be going in the opposite rotational direction. And an example of that is the next picture that I've got to the right. So if instead of measuring a positive angle, but instead we measured a negative angle like this, then the angle coterminal to a negative angle will be a positive coterminal angle. Now, it's of course possible. I mentioned earlier up here, that one full rotation around, is 360 degrees. But sometimes we may go more than one rotation around. So that's what this illustration here on the right shows, is that we started our angle here on the initial side, and we went around not just once, not just twice, but 3 times, and then stopped. So we went around 3 full rotations. So 1, 2, 3, and then went over to the terminal side right there. And so the angle that's coterminal to that angle with all those rotations would be the angle without those rotations. So this would be the coterminal angle, which, does seem as though it's like that's a violation of the definition that I gave because, here we've got one angle going in one direction and the coterminal angle is the angle going in the opposite direction. But that's kind of one of two different definitions. The other definition is, what angle you have left after you've subtracted full rotations around. What you have left is the coterminal angle. Okay. Okay. And, the unit of measure is commonly either degrees or radians. Degrees, is probably something that you know. And we're not referring, of course, to temperature, but even in terms of angles, you may have heard of degree angles before. But radians may be a new concept. So where do degrees and radians come from? That's what we'll look at here in the next section.